me record. Yeah, that'd be a good idea. All right. Perfect. All right. Yo, welcome everyone back to the Boondogglers podcast, episode 5. Hello, hello. How's everyone doing? Tarpit, what's up, dude?
Chillin'. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Working on a lot of fun stuff, and man, you have some very exciting social media stuff going on right now.
That's true. TikTok has been fun the last couple days.
Yeah, I'm a little bit jealous, but I'm gonna kick your ass, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, super fun stuff, dude.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about just taking a moment at the beginning of the pod to just I got this clip on my stream the other night of an owl ripping a rat apart, and I'm just super proud of it. I want to maybe even just take a still from it and put it on the podcast right now, and maybe link to it in the description.
Pop it up.
It's a badass clip.
Yeah, I was there for that.
That's true. That was at the end of your night.
Yeah.
That's tight.
Yeah.
May as well just brag about shit
Yeah, hell yeah.
with the platform.
Absolutely.
So, was thinking about topics for today, and I kind of circled back around to one I was thinking about for a while. I would like to kind of talk about school.
Okay.
And kind of go over both of our like educational histories. Like maybe in some depth, like almost like year by year.
Yeah.
And and then maybe just talk about how school could be better too, because I think this year, due to the pandemic, the format of school is like getting torn open, and there's a lot of new different techniques getting tried, and
True.
Might be a fun one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was your first school like organization you got put in outside the house?
The first organization that I was thrown into was I went to preschool, and it was in a church. I think maybe we had some religious stuff, even though we are not a religious family. We ate a lot of goldfish, and don't really remember. I have a terrible memory of my childhood. I don't remember anything below the age of 5. Like I can't. Do you have a good memory of your childhood? I can't remember anything.
I have a limited list of things I remember from before 5. It's pretty limited. It's pretty limited. But I feel like I know aspects of the story. So my first preschool was I was 4, and I did 2 years of different preschools, and I'd say my memories from that one are like kind of like frozen tableaus, and I probably have like 3 Polaroids in my brain I can like pull up, and I bet every time I pull that memory up, it changes. You know what I mean?
Memories of memories, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I would be like in the basement. We'd have those little like milk cart wheel things that you could just sit on and like scoot around, and we would just do that around in the basement. Man, that's like the only thing I can remember.
And it was it was a church program?
It was a preschool. Yeah, it was like a church program. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, after you.
Well, I do have a really interesting memory of school, and we had access to.
Sorry, Jelly, you're invited to leave. Bounce.
Yeah, you need the bounce.
Go, leave.
Bounce, Jelly.
Right, go ahead.
But they would have this little toy heartbeat sensor. What the hell do you call them? What are they called? You put them in your ear and you put them up to the heartbeat sensor?
Stethoscope?
I guess. Yeah, whatever that is. So I would listen to my heartbeat, and I would like, I think it was the first time that I liked almost like music in a way. It was like the first time that I would hear it and be like, yeah, sure. And it's funny because that same kind of like deep, bassy kind of consistent rhythmic, I still like that in my music today.
Yeah.
which is really interesting. So, it was probably important to have access to that kind of stuff to develop myself at a
That is
young
interesting.
age.
That just sounds to me like it simulates your mom's heartbeat in the womb. Just crazy to
Yeah.
think about, but your brain
Yeah.
like formed in that soundscape, just like whoop, 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 whoop.
Yeah, it's super crazy. I wonder if that's why people like bass so much. Probably is.
I think you could make a guess there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had 2 years of preschool. The second was via the synagogue. And again, I don't think they got very religious with us, but it was in the synagogue. And then the first one was actually at a school for the deaf. But a school that doesn't believe in sign language. It believes in like radical integration and like extreme lip reading training.
Oh, wow.
Because it's called the Clark School for the Deaf. It's a ancient American institution, and I lived like on the campus almost. That's where I grew up, and so they integrate their students with hearing kids, and basically they see sign language as a segregation. So
That's really interesting.
I remember like they would call. I remember my friend there. Her name was Emily, and she was deaf, and they would like call, like if they called a kid by their name verbally, and the kid like got up and went over to the teacher, that was something to be rewarded. That was like a gold star thing. It's like that's
Sure,
what they were training, like using whatever limiting hearing they did have and whatever. I mean, I have very very limited memories from there, but like I've learned a little bit about the program since then. And
So were you there as like to be integrated in to help the kids in a way? Like, did they have like a number of hearing kids and a number of deaf kids, and they would like have
every class they mix.
Super interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Huh.
I don't know enough about it. My guess is it's probably controversial at some level.
Yeah.
I don't know if their like philosophy is super well respected or if it's divisive or whatever, but I know that they kind of take that stance.
Really interesting. Oh, do you have to like, were your parents almost like sacrificing well, I guess you don't really get that much education in preschool, but were they kind of like, well, he'll have a little bit less of a normal, situation to.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that they would see it as a enrichment, as a more unusual,
Yeah. Totally.
I think at that point it is largely daycare, like you were talking about.
Right.
So, I don't know, you teach your kid that there's people that are different from them,
Yeah, that's like one of the most
and you
important
get
times to
daycare.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so then you went to kindergarten? Was that
Yeah.
a public? or
Public.
private?
I went to public all the way through 5th grade.
Okay.
Were you in public?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that was whatever. Okay, school.
How about
And,
outside of? Were there music lessons? Was there
I
enrichment
had.
outside of grades like 1 through 5?
Yeah, there was a lot of the school. I didn't really take any extracurricular stuff that was in the school.
Yeah.
But I've always been interested in, especially back then, it was drawing, a lot of drawing, and a lot of music, like piano. But I really wasn't like a class kind of I took gymnastics. Took a lot of gymnastics.
That counts.
And when I say a lot, I mean I was a kid. It was practically daycare, but still. And yeah, so I kind of just bounced around with a bunch of stuff, but I never have been I never have been able to really. I don't really like classes.
Yeah.
I don't like classes.
There were piano lessons.
Yeah, or lessons rather. I don't like lessons. Yeah.
Did that
We'd have
happen
someone
with-
come over and it would just be terrible and whatever.
Yeah. That shit hurt too.
Yeah. What about you?
I was doing flute lessons in 2nd grade. No idea why I picked that. And yeah, I mean, it was like pulling teeth to practice.
Yeah.
A lot of this informs how I try to teach music. Is just there's this, I just feel like you gotta give the student like 55% fun in every lesson. And teaching a 2nd grader how to read sheet music is like not that.
Yeah, not gonna work. Yeah, right. Yeah. And I think the way that the schools go about, like, I think they kind of try. Like, I can kind of remember, like, they try to make it 50% fun, maybe. But I think that they're going about that fun in the wrong way. Because what happens a lot is, well, at least in my schools, is you would have, it would just be kind of like, I feel like the education needs to be divided itself into half education, half fun, not 50% education, 50% fun, because then they don't, really work together. I think the education part needs to, itself needs to be part of the fun, which I don't think that really was the case with most of my schools.
It's interesting. It makes me realize that the like painful class, overly hyped up recess cycle, it's kind of like the little kid version of you work a job you hate, but then you can afford to go on vacation and you be happy for a week in the Bahamas at the end of the year. And that's what makes it okay to be miserable. That's the reason to be miserable the rest of the year. And you're right. Like, imagine a science class where, every day for the hour-long period, you're just with your kids in a frickin' wetlands. Like, it's like wetlands in the recess, recess in the wetlands with like a knowledgeable naturalist as the teacher. You know what I mean?
Right.
And,
right.
I could imagine it getting blended together way
yeah, you're totally right about that. The schools really do teach that, that cycle, the recess, being able to be miserable because you have an excuse because soon you'll be able to get off of it. That's a really dangerous thing. I haven't really thought about that. And the schools totally teach that. I'm surprised they do.
And the job market,
they do.
The job market, creates it too.
Right.
And relies on it in a lot of ways, I guess.
Right. Maybe the reason why the schools do it is because the job market relies on it. Got to prepare you.
Honestly,
cycle.
This is going to just be the biggest zoom out of all time, but like I believe it represents a structure that's reflected in you suffer now so you go to heaven later. It's kind of like the capitalist version of that old Christian concept of heaven where life now gets subverted to some fantasy reward later. And it does the same thing. Like right now it keeps the office worker toiling at something that they hate and maybe they even know is bad for the world.
Right.
And back then, promising people heaven later, it kept them underfoot. It kept them toiling in the fields. It kept them, coming to church for their truth, and nowhere else. So I think it is kind of fucked up down to that level.
Yeah, that cycle is still very much part of our culture, even though it's, been watered down a little bit. Yeah, that's true. That is true. And the schools definitely have that. But my second school, after I skipped 6th grade. I don't know if you know that.
Did you know that 5 to 7?
No, I didn't skip in a smart way. They weren't like, oh, this kid needs to skip. No, I didn't go. And then I switched schools the next year, and they didn't care that I didn't go to the 6th grade.
So you just spent a year off?
Just spent a year off, yeah.
Got you. And what did your parents have you doing? Just annoying them?
That year was pretty much annoying them. That's year actually
illegal.
Didn't go to 6th grade. I know it's illegal. It's illegal. It's totally illegal.
Criminal.
I know. Well, I have another funny story like that too. But so the reason why I didn't go to 6th grade is because of my OCD. It got so bad. I went to 2 weeks of like preparation for 6th grade, and whatever my OCD was. This is when I was first started like kicking in my brain, and so whatever. And then the first day of school, I was freaking out so bad I couldn't touch my pencil because the pencil touched the desk. The desk was contaminated, and then I touched my hand with the pencil. Hand can't use my hand for the rest of the day, and it just got so bad that I, if I'm remembering correctly, I just walked out, called my mom in the lobby, and we did not go back. I did not go back to 6th grade.
That's a dope mom, though.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. He saved me for sure.
Wow. Crazy. And then what was it? What type of school is it that you returned to? Just a public middle school?
The school that I returned to, we basically, it was a charter school.
So
the
that's
charter school.
So that's when charter school, and that was 7 through 12. Not for you, but
Right.
that's what the school had.
Right. Right. Yep.
Gotcha.
Or no, the school is kindergarten through 12th.
So
40
gotcha.
people per grade.
Okay. So in that
And,
year, that year is crazy to me. Were there drawing classes? Were there piano lessons? Was there
was
anything, or was
exposure
it basic?
therapy.
Okay.
Exposure therapy, a lot of exposure therapy. We would drive 45 minutes out of the city to go and do exposure therapy. And
What was that like?
I mean, brutal. Like go into a hospital, sit on the floor, put my hands on the floor
With a doctor, or with a therapist?
with the therapist, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of shit is just it was brutal. I couldn't do that today.
Yeah.
Well, especially not with COVID, but maybe I could do it without COVID.
So looking back on it, you think it was a necessary boot camp for you, or you think maybe it didn't help?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It did.
For sure. Yeah, I was in a bad spot and it fixed it. Exposure therapy. I completely believe in exposure therapy.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Firsthand experience that it works.
Wow.
And then did you go public school all the way to 12th?
Yes.
The same school the whole time?
No. So Northampton is like, it's a weird combination of small town and kind of city-like. So there's like 6 elementary schools that feed into 2 middle schools that feed into 3 high schools. Public high school, a performing arts high school, and a vocational high school. And I went to the normal one.
Gotcha. I'm surprised you didn't go to the arts one.
Yeah, it didn't really have a reputation for rigor. But, almost more interesting than any part of my public schooling, or a big part of it, was that starting the summer after 6th grade, I was getting sent to Bucks Rock, which is a just super futuristic summer camp for teenagers. And I remember that my parents always told me, I wasn't there for those arguments, but that they used to go back and forth about private versus public for me and my sister. And that ultimately part of the, because my sister really wanted to go to a private high school when she was in middle school, and they went back and forth about it. And ultimately what ended up happening was, like, the way my dad puts it is, the camp gave us the enrichment that private school would have given us, but in like a concentrated dose all at the end of the year.
Wow.
And so that was like, that put even my regular schooling into a different context, because, Bucks Rock is a place where everyone's there for arts, and you have visual and performing arts together. There is no classes. There's no schedule. If you're a student there, you could wake up and play ping pong all day. And it's no one's job maybe it's someone's job to eventually notice and kind of push you a little bit. Hey, you should make a painting or something, but
Sure.
It's actually nobody's job to tell you what to do. And so that also means that it's a place where you can experience like a much less age stratification. If you're the coolest 12-year-old of all time, you'll get adopted by the 15-year-olds and be in their friend group. And all the counselors are like artists in their 20s who are like making it work and then come here to teach. So it's this place where even by the time I was going into 7th and 8th grade, I felt like maybe my best friend in the world was person X who lives in New York City. And that person saw me as like a creative person. And so it was kind of like whatever happened in school, I had this like buffer zone where it was like, well, in the summers I get to go like really be myself and be like, go from someone who wasn't especially popular or, didn't feel super, super like relaxed in like a school social environment, right, to a place where literally the more creative I was, the weirder I was, literally the more social rewards I got. And everyone was there. Like a lot of kids were out as queer at camp, but not to their families and their schools at home. And I think a lot of people who went to that place kind of benefited from that. Like I didn't get bullied or anything in high school, but if I had, I still would have just been like, you idiots. Like I'm just going to go to New York and hang out with my friends there this weekend instead. Like, right. So that kind of gave me a different perspective on everything else that happened. And
yeah,
I think that's how my parents justified the like putting us in public school and maybe not giving us the best of everything in that sense. but also giving us this like hyperdose of enrichment there.
Man, your parents are really smart for that. That kind of, I can just imagine that kind of environment is just so important for kids. I've had little like doses of that kind of environment here and there. I don't really remember what they exactly are, but I just know that I've kind of had that kind of deal. Maybe summer camps, maybe I think charter school had some extracurricular thing that got to know the people more, the teachers more personally. That did a lot for me in just the small amount that I had. And you got that a lot. Was it every weekend? Or did you say over the summer?
So it was over the summer, and I was spending 8 weeks there in the summer. But
just
then,
straight? 8 weeks straight?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then, so yeah,
Holy crap.
you can imagine how close people got by the end of those 8 weeks. I mean,
you lived there.
Yeah. Yeah. And
wow, that's crazy.
And then also my parents were cool enough to basically starting in 9th grade, I was allowed to like take the train into New York City and have like, Friday night sleepover with friend A, Saturday night sleepover with friend B, take the train home. And so those weekends were like dumb thrilling to me. I mean, imagine being a freshman in high school, but it's like Friday night and you like get off the train in Manhattan, and I would just like walk through Manhattan to like my friend's house in the Village and just feel
that's
just
so
like
fun.
overly adult, you know what I mean? And it was really crazy fun.
Was the camp in Manhattan?
No, camp's in Connecticut, so that's like halfway between me and New York, and basically Connecticut is a suburb of all of Western Connecticut is a suburb of New York City. So probably upwards of a high 70%, 77% of kids there, I bet their parents work in New York, whether they live in Jersey and Connecticut or New York.
Right.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Are any connections in your life now from that camp?
More than any other circle. Alice.
Oh, really?
Alice and I met, 13 years old, there.
Oh, you met Alice when you were 13?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
I did not know that. That's awesome.
I mean, I went back and taught there a couple summers during college.
That's right.
And, Ded, I brought him with me after I graduated. He worked there a summer. So it's like a huge part of my network. Like I have, sometimes we'll be at a bar and it'll be like me and Alice or, back in the day. And then another person we know will like walk in the bar from there. And then there'll be like a fourth person somehow in the bar where it's like, oh my God, Bucks Rock in the house. But it like keeps happening. So it's not just me. It's like a lot of people, probably stronger than my college connections and my like public school connections.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's some valuable stuff right there. Damn.
Yeah, exactly. This is their first summer that they didn't run camp since 42.
Oh, with COVID. Since 42. Wow, so it's been around for a long time.
Yeah. The director was a Holocaust survivor, like a direct Holocaust escapee.
Gee, wow.
Who came here and set up a camp that it was called a work camp, but what it was like an agricultural summer camp for English refugees. So it was like Jewish kids who had passed through England, came to the States, needed something to do in the summer, and by like the 50s it had transitioned into, plays, music, glass blowing, all that, and then there's just this crazy history there. It's kind of like a little utopian thing for rich people, basically.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, I live in the South, obviously, and the idea of 3 high schools, one being arts, one being whatever you said, and one being regular. That's not a thing that we have. Like I don't think there's any public arts schools in the South. Well, you know what? Maybe in Atlanta, because Atlanta's pretty progressive. We're kind of like an island. Mm-hmm. And then the idea of a camp, there's a bunch of camps around here, but mostly they are all Christian, Christian summer camps.
Yeah.
There's not really any like, next level progressive arts camps around here.
Yeah.
I actually went to 2 Christian camps, and it's not like a straight up like, church camp. It's just like a camp, fun, whatever, but you go to church every night, whatever. And I think I got maybe a similar experience. Well, I don't know. It's just kind of, it's the same thing with the fun. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
they just give you kind of not really educational fun, just whatever, and then they just do 2 hours of religious stuff, and that's your day. You know, and I didn't really
kind of a lot.
learn much.
And what age were you then?
I was probably 10.
Yeah. Fifth, sixth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, around that time. And it's important because, you know, I met people and, you know, friendships, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
But it's not the same thing that you did. I would have loved to do something that you did.
And what was unique about your charter school? And that was like 7th through 10th for you or something like that? 7th through
Yeah,
11th?
the charter school was basically like the savior. It was a lottery system. School got super duper popular, and everyone wanted to get into it. It's right in the wealthier part of my city. It's called Buckhead. Everyone in Buckhead wanted to get into it. It's free, obviously, charter school, and there were only 40 people per grade. Or was it 40 or 50? It was 40 or 50. And, you know, there were probably tens of thousands of people that were trying to get into the school in Atlanta.
Damn.
And we were like, well, you know, we're not going back to the school that he was at.
Yeah.
We don't really have a plan.
It was a Hail Mary.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just got pulled out of my sister and I both got pulled, which is kind of insane. So we went there. It was amazing. Super young teachers. And the classes were very much almost similar to your summer camp. There was a schedule, but there really wasn't like the teacher directing it. It was more, we sat in a circle, you know, the teacher gave us a little bit of what we were discussing, and then we would just have discussions. And we would do that in history, we did that in English, we did that in music. And our English class, we would read books that had to do with the music that we were learning in music class.
That's so sick.
And we would also be studying the history of what was going on in the books in history class. So everything was connected. They could do that because it was so small.
Right.
And super valuable. Like that literally saved me.
That's
for
amazing.
real. Yeah.
And did you take standardized tests?
So no.
Yeah.
No, the school did not have to follow. It was since a charter school is kind of like in between a private school and a public school. We got like a really good, what I imagine a private school, good private school education would be, without having to pay anything. And so no, we didn't have to follow any of the public school guidelines. They kind of did their own testing deal, and yeah.
What were tests like there?
Tests were, they were pretty much just standard for them. I guess they were like custom, whatever. It was just about the stuff we were learning,
You were cramming
took them on
to
computers.
Like fill out. You took them on computers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And the school was particularly hard. It was like one of the hardest schools in the city, for sure.
Yeah.
Harder than a lot of private schools because their expectations were just ridiculously high. So, in seventh grade, I read the Iliad, the Aeneid. Eighth grade, I read Paradise Lost. Mm-hmm. So, some super hardcore books. But they also, they would value your character, and they would kind of balance that with your grades. And I
That's so
did not
smart.
do one lick of homework. Like did not care about homework. I just wouldn't do it. And but I wrote top of class essays.
Yeah.
And I spoke more than anyone else in the class. And the school saw that, and even though I had Fs, they were like, well, he's great. We're going to keep passing him. So
Yeah, right.
that kind of thing is great, I think.
Talking in class has overpowered people. If anyone's not done with school,
Yeah.
you don't have to study. You don't even have to murder your essays the way Cov did.
Yeah.
All you got to do is you just got to listen to what the teacher says once class starts and respond to that.
Yeah, talking in class is seriously OP. It really is.
Yeah, that was my whole high school and college. Just cramming for tests like 20 minutes like morning before the test.
Yep.
just if a essay was 1,000 words, I would hand in 900 and be like, it was just my vision for it to be 900. And then in class, I was just like, digging in with them and enjoyed that. And that's when the time comes to give that person a grade. You don't necessarily do the math. You just be like, what letter is Doug? Like, you know what? Doug's a B. He's a B. Right, and I think a lot of it, even in more structured courses, is emotional. Like at the moment of giving a grade, it's
for
not
sure.
It's not necessarily math for all teachers, I'd say.
Yeah, I think the teachers definitely value that, especially in a school that is, allows the teachers a little bit of flexibility there with that kind of stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah. But and then I guess another interesting thing, kind of related, is I never really felt like, after I left 6th grade, I never really felt like I was part of the school, even though I went to the school, the charter school, that is. So when there was homework, I was like, that's not for me. Like, it doesn't really apply to me. That's not really for me. Same with like the essay topics. I was just kind of like, at that point, I was just kind of doing my own thing. I didn't really care. I didn't care about grades at all. I've never cared about grades. I've never wanted to fall into that cycle of, get good grades, go to college, get a job, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I just don't care about that. And so with the essays, I would kind of just like manipulate what they were asking you to write about and just kind of like make my own topic up. And even though it didn't really follow the guidelines of what they said, I turn it in and they would appreciate that. And I think that's why I got top of the class essays a lot.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You definitely, it sounds like you lucked out big time for what you needed. You got it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I wonder if there was any math on bringing your sister along. I wonder if once they choose a sibling, they're like, we may as well buff this family. Like,
I think that's what it is. Yeah. We at first we thought we got lucky and we were like, we both got, but I think you're probably right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And so for those years, which was 7 to 10 or 7 to 11?
7 to 11.
Was there structured after school stuff, lessons, sports?
I didn't do any of that.
Plays.
I didn't do any extracurricular, nothing. I came home and played
just chilling
The Witcher.
with friends and video games.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I think the time has come to like imagine like overly perfect future classroom styles.
Sure.
Especially because it's not overly perfect by any means, but there's stuff getting forced to happen by the pandemic. Notably, like small learning pods. Couple parents will put 4 or 5 kids together, and those kids hang out together every day and work on problems, and it's kind of sounds kind of good. Like, kind of sounds better than homeschooling, at least. Especially if it happened not during the pandemic, but just kind of like spontaneous, like homeschool groups. Kind of sounds interesting. On our last Lost podcast episode, I was saying that I thought in a future city, it might be really amazing to intentionally mix kids and adults, even though that's, makes people feel icky. I think it doesn't necessarily have to. I was imagining that, like, the school is a horseshoe shape, and like the community garden is in the middle of the horseshoe.
Yep.
And recess happens, maybe either on the outside of the horseshoe or on the inside, where you could garden alongside adults, or maybe the place that adults are playing basketball in the park is like when the kids get out.
Right.
It's just intermingling, and that'd be kind of interesting. It might also be interesting to imagine just like totally mixed age groups. Imagine if you were like, organizing, a class of 20 that went from ages 10 to ages 18 to do something, actually achieve something, start a garden from scratch or something. And, and you'd be demanding certain types of like theoretical engagement depending on the age or something. I don't know.
For sure. And it also sets up role models. Kids really like to look up to the people, to the ages above them, and follow that. So I think it would be kind of overpowered to have a group of 18-year-olds that, like 5 18-year-olds that are like handpicked. These are great great role models, and then throw them in with a bunch of 15 and 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
I think that just that relationship between the younger and the older would push the younger to be better and push the older to be open to the younger ones.
Okay, so how about this? As something that wouldn't just be pie in the sky, maybe you could implement this even in a public school. Take your, just let's say you have a 6 through 12 school. You break off 2 hours of everyone's day. And if in a 6-hour day, you break off 2. And those 2 go to your team. The team is an inter-age group the size of a class that stays with one teacher for a month. So it's for October, at the from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., the end of your school day is you're building a garden with Mr. Rosenberg, or maybe you guys are just any number of different projects you could imagine, but in November you scramble it again, so you get a whole new group. And Mr. Rosenberg is doing his garden program just 9 months in a row, just with different groups.
Right.
But the kids get to move around, and you get to have this this super hands-on kind of group.
That's a really good idea.
Maybe another group makes a game, and all month they're just designing and playing that game, with balls or some type of thing. And you would just kind of really super aggressively mix that. And maybe the older the kids get, the bigger a part of the teaching, they get to take on. So, if you're Mr. Rosenberg, you have 2 seniors in your gardening team, you actually give you give the 10-year-olds to the seniors as pair buddies or whatever you do. And sounds kind of fun.
That is a really good idea and totally possible for public schools right now. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The only, the hardest thing would be, I think the funding for having a garden and having that kind of being able to go to a marsh and learn about all the creatures in it and walk around, and that kind of stuff is expensive, and that's what we're missing. That's what we're missing. We're just missing the funding. Seriously.
True.
I think all that stuff. I think what you're saying. I think a lot of schools would start to do stuff like that if they just had the funding.
That's interesting. Yeah. Maybe just scale it back. Maybe you're working on a 10-minute play for the month or something. But you're right. It would be, a minimum of funding would allow you to, go way harder with it.
Right.
Have a team that picks up trash at each team is trying to pick up more trash by volume than the month before them. You know what I mean? It's we got a ton. Are we going to is this November team? Are we going to do 2 tons?
Yeah.
Let's design our trash picking up tools first. Let's freaking look at Google Earth of the town and find the biggest trash buildups so that it's just easy for us to farm it and beat
cleaning
October.
creeks.
So you're right. That takes
that's
money. That takes transportation, materials.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of, you could just do it in the general area. You could walk to it, like my public school. Yeah. I'm pretty sure every public school in America, has a forest nearby, has a river nearby, has, whatever. I think getting out there and really utilizing your land, the local, whether that's city land or rural land. I think that schools do not take advantage of that enough.
Right.
Because the most fun times for me was going out. We would actually go out into the woods behind our school, and I don't even know what we did back there, but maybe it was just me and the principal or something. I was kidding. I
Wait, come to think of it. Wait, I'm having a new memory. Wait.
Oh shit! Wait, no. Okay, never mind. And that was some of the most fun. Getting out and it's super fun being in school and leaving school and doing school things, but being in the world, everything, you kind of look at everything differently. When you see an ad on a TV when you're watching, something in class, it's everyone freaks out. I think there is, some energy behind just letting people out of school yet still organized.
Yeah.
And I think
Totally.
yeah, I just don't think that's utilized enough.
Older the kid is in the team, just the more insane amounts of power you give them. So it's like there's nothing fun about being a senior having to deal with sixth graders unless like you're the teacher.
Right.
You know, imagine if you ran your team like that. Like, you know, okay, like the seniors are going to direct the play. You know, I'm just,
Right.
I'll just be here. You know, I'll answer whatever questions you have, but we're going to need to have something on stage in 30 days, like go or something.
Totally. Yeah. Making the kids have the responsibility rather than the teacher just, directing everything, I think is way more powerful.
Yeah.
Because I experienced that. And I think it is way more powerful.
Yeah. Interesting.
And yeah, the age groups intermingled together, I think is the way to do that.
It's crazy. Crazy key to find those moments. I think for me, having an older sibling was also overpowered because for some reason my sister like demonstrably hated but did tolerate me hanging around a lot. So it would be like I'm in 6th grade, she's in 10th grade, and there's a bunch of 10th graders in my house, and I'm just like around, and that was a lot of kind of inter-age interaction I got to. I don't know if you are aware of providing that to your sister, but you may have very much provided it without even knowing it. Just
Yeah, no, I think I probably have.
which is why younger siblings are always cooler than older siblings. It's just by a rule.
Well, we'll see about that. Have you seen my videos? Huh?
Yeah.
But so let's talk about how schools are changing now with COVID, because what we're talking about is kind of a situation where this has not been manipulated by COVID. Virtual schooling.
Yeah. Right.
What's the future of that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I don't know if you've seen these like heartbreaking viral videos of kindergarten teachers who are now streamers, like trying to keep 5th graders, or rather trying to keep 5-year-olds like engaged. And you can watch.
I mean like that. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So they're looking into their mic and they're like, "Hey, like, can we all like
knock it
mute
on the
our
mic."
microphones? Like, big mute button." They hold up like a sign with the mute button. They're like, "Okay." Like,
I've seen that.
Like, Timmy, you're not. You know what I mean? And that's just
Yeah,
that
it's
just
bad.
hurts because it's not the skill set they've been practicing.
Right.
It's not how you would set it up. So
Yeah,
I think
it's
it
so
is
bad.
definitely an emergency for a lot of teachers and a lot of students that this gets better. Maybe even, I mean, this sounds kind of brutal for teachers, but maybe if there was some type of like 1-on-2 Skype that happens, a Zoom call with one teacher, 2 students at a time, and you only go to school for an hour, but you're totally getting the teacher's attention.
Yeah, not a bad idea. Yeah,
My heart
because
goes out
everyone's
to
at home.
teachers right now.
Right, could work. Yeah, and then what you're talking about, I mean, that could literally be fixed with just better software, better platforms for this. Like if there was there's an OBS for recording right now. Everyone uses OBS. If there was a freaking, virtual school app that someone designed and it was just perfected for schooling. Because right now, what are they doing over Zoom and whatever? It's like that's not really designed for a classroom,
That's true.
environment.
That's true.
So I think someone could really go in and make an actually effective platform for that kind of stuff.
What would that software need?
I think it would need the mute. I think all the audio stuff would need to be way quicker and way more automated, and so that the teachers aren't having to mute people, unmute people for people to talk, blah blah blah, whatever. I guess I can't really come up with any totally too technical things right now because it's a hard thing to do in general, even for someone that knows what they're doing with it. I think that so here's a weird idea, and this is kind of a future idea because obviously it's not realistic for a bunch of parents to buy their children, $500 VR headsets.
Yeah.
But let's just say that this pandemic isn't just this year. Let's say that we're going into a pandemic century. And I think virtual, like literally virtual school could be really insane. Like you're actually sitting at a desk, you know, you actually see the teacher at the front of the classroom. You know what I mean? Like we're talking like futuristic, totally futuristic.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it kind of the big question for me it brings up is what is the role of the communal class itself? Because when I imagine like a way more smooth, effective remote learning, I could imagine, you know, destroying the class and making it that each kid is working on something and gets gets checked in on. So it's like, yeah, you have 20 minutes you have a 20-minute Zoom call with your teacher to show them how your book report is evolving and talk to them about what the next stage is and how to take it to the next level. But you don't necessarily have all the other kids listening in on that. But,
Right.
So that sounds really great. But then obviously I think classroom teachers would say so much would be lost where the kids are bouncing off each other, they're learning from each other, they're annoyed by each other, they're making each other laugh. Like that's a huge, huge aspect of it. So the question becomes, what exactly is the value of that dimension, the group learning dimension, and how could you kind of consolidate that? Because if you could give that in like a hyper intense dose, then you could also break off, you know, you could make it more self-directed in other ways. Like, you know, maybe VR would allow that. Or what if, what about this? What if so each kid meets with their teacher one-on-one for 20 minutes a day. And if they didn't do 2 hours of work on the thing they're working on, the teacher will know. Right? So you meet with your teacher to show them what you've worked on, you know, yesterday or today. And then you get off the call and then you do 2 hours of quote homework. But what you're doing is you're preparing your presentation to your teacher tomorrow.
Sure.
And then each day, one kid basically streams to the class. So you have like 20 minutes with the teacher and then 20 minutes where basically one student is presenting to the whole class what they're doing. And everyone exists in a chat, but instead of like the teacher having the microphone, it would be the kid having the microphone. And, you know, the teacher would basically maybe be modding. You know, they'd have the ability to like take it over and be like, oh, okay, Cup wasn't ready today.
Right.
You know, moving on. But, you know, maybe there's some type of like hyper-focused, you know, version where each kid does a little bit of performing to the group, but it's not like everyone's sitting and listening together to the teacher all the time.
Yeah. I think, you know, I think what you're saying may be more effective than what's happening now, especially with you know, really young kids like 5 and 7-year-olds. Because that kind of, you know, just like the Zoom conference classroom is just brutal right now with the young kids.
It's brutal for adults.
Yeah, brutal for adults too. And I think with the younger ones, you know, if you were to say, okay, well, we're gonna come back in 2 hours after you're done doing whatever, I just think that I just have a picture in my mind of like a 7-year-old, you know, like getting off the thing and then just like sitting there alone at their desk, like doing their thing. You know, it's just not like that. It's so terrible.
You'd need another teacher there with them.
Right. Right, because you know you know, we're social animals. Humans are social animals, and in that age group, it's just the most dire time to get that social
you're right.
education. And you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, people. I guess this is only like 1 year, but still, 1 year is a lot for a kid. The pandemic, with the schooling situation, may have a somewhat detrimental effect on the little kids that are you know, missing that social time right now. You know, they may actually see the result of that later in their life.
Absolutely. I mean, at a totally like neurological development level.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's true. I think there's a lot of fretting about that, I think.
Yeah.
I tend to believe that we're getting raised by the world for the world as it is. So, you know, I think there's a lot of fretting about, you know, different like imperfections in school where the kids ultimately might be learning more from the imperfections than from when the school works.
Yeah.
But that's not always like how parents like imagine education to go.
Right.
But I think that what I'm talking about is kind of like why you might choose a public school even if you could afford a private school, because you're like, well, I don't want my kid to only be around, you know, other people who are like getting read Shakespeare by their parents going to bed too. It's like,
Right.
you know, there's some benefit from rubbing up against different types of people and
Absolutely.
dealing with teachers that suck, you know, like
Right.
maybe I want my kid to get that too. But you're right. You're right. Imagine if your kid was in second grade and you just knew that like every day they went to school, their brain is just forming, and now they're just looking at an iPad. Like,
Right.
that'd be stressful as hell.
So bad when I think about it. I haven't really thought about it in depth until now.
God, I'm so glad I'm not quarantining with children. Oh Lord.
Oh, I can't even comprehend that situation.
Because I feel like the only solution to seeing your kid with an iPad is like, okay, I'm going to take them out into the woods. All right, like me and my kid are going to build a model rocket. But it's like, no, you have to work.
Right.
You have to work to pay bills. Like, no. Like, you know, daycare with enrichment is like what is needed. So there's the classroom needs of the kid, and then there's also just like the needs of daycare. Because
Yeah.
if the teacher signs off and now the parent's supposed to like walk their kid through the baking soda volcano, like that doesn't work. The parent
Right.
needs to work. Parent needs to
Right.
make money. So
Yeah, no wonder so many people in America are freaking opting out of the quarantine right now, you know? Every day I'm just seeing, like, freaking drove by my neighborhood park the other day, and there's just a party. There's just a little kid, you know, 5-year-olds, whatever. It's just a party down there. Probably
Yeah.
50 kids. And, you know, I'm just like, well, okay. Well, I guess people just really don't care anymore. And as much as I hate it, I have to admit I understand it, because quarantining with kids would be the worst thing in the world. I cannot imagine anything worse.
right. Yeah. Imagine you work from home now too. So you went from like being at work with your coworkers who are like not your spouse and not your kids, who are like doing the same thing that you're doing, and there's some rapport, you know, to now you're doing that work, a bizarro version of that work in the house while the kid's demanding attention. No more like, you know, camaraderie about the workplace.
Yeah.
Just you, your fucking spouse, and your kids. Like,
Yeah.
oh Lord.
Brutal.
Yeah. My heart goes out to any parent right now.
Yeah.
But I do think that the kids will be okay. I think that, you know, whatever slowdowns this process brings about in the kids' development, they're reflecting a reality in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if your kid's brain is radically reorienting away from, you know, things like tag towards things like Zoom, that might just because that's the future that they're getting raised for.
Yeah, well, I hope, I mean, I kind of hope not, because I think that no matter how far in the future we go, I think it's still, you know, we're still humans. I think it's still mega important to have those in-person interactions. And that's why I'm just hoping that, you know, this VR school isn't gonna be a thing.
Yeah.
Because I think it, you know, we're right now we're freaking upset over just a year being taken away from these kids. You know, with imagine, you know, kindergarten through 12th grade. That's what you did. Like, that would fuck you up.
I mean, that would be beyond fucking you up towards, like, you know, forming a creature for a different planet, basically.
Right. Yeah, that's scary.
That is kind of gnarly. Well, I think right now part of our job is to imagine both. It's to, you know, get all the comfort we can out of the idea that things might go back to normal, while also preparing for maybe a year of normal and then another one, or, you know, maybe it doesn't go away. Like, for me, part of it is like my plan for my 30s was to work at restaurants, and, you know, it'd be cool if my restaurant opened and didn't close again. I mean, I'd be terrified, but there'd be good sides of it. And then it's also worth me considering what happens if restaurants just don't make money ever again in America, and like what that would mean. And
Right.
it's stressful to have to like hold both in our heads, but it seems like it's gonna go one of two ways, and that's kind of
Yeah.
like either.
Yeah. Well, I think you may be right in that we're going into a generation of pandemics, but they don't last forever. Australia's completely open now. There's like football games and people are in classrooms and whatever, and there's like, there's no cases. New Zealand, there's like 0 cases.
Yeah,
South Korea is looking very similar. So I think we're just so behind that it's looking a lot more grim to us.
that's fair. We might learn. Maybe one was really all it'll take.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially with better administrations.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We'll see. We'll see. The door to crushing this might be wide open. And if the Pfizer's vaccine is in fact, the beginning of the end of this thing, then that happened faster than people were predicting, and
Yeah.
it, maybe the super dour way I'm looking at it will need to get adjusted, but at the same time, I maybe I'm just protecting myself.
Yeah. Well, it's smart to think about it. It's smart to
Yeah.
think about it
Yeah.
because you have to prepare. If you haven't thought about it beforehand, then we're going to end up with a situation like we're in now.
I guess, yeah, totally, exactly. That is exactly it. I think that if we don't have to worry, it is because adjustments will get forced. But they did get forced. There is no world where, like, life doesn't change and we don't worry.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's
I
like
do know what you mean.
if we handle this pandemic, it's because we actually developed the skills as a people to do so. And so, yeah, I guess that's a way it could go.
Well, fun chat.
Yeah,
I think we've been going for about 57 minutes.
which is perfect.
How do you like starting a little bit earlier? You're getting up earlier now, right?
Yeah. It's wavering a little bit, but I'm keeping it going. And man, there's just so much time in the day. It's like unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I think it is working for me, and especially because the Bobcat is dawn and dusk, so it's not like it nerfs me too bad to actually chase Bobcat footage. It's not a deep night nocturnal creature.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, man. Your streams have been super fun. The band streams have been awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, sounds really good. Like the
Appreciate
audio is great.
Well, yeah, these have just been the phone in the room. So our next rehearsal is going to be, I think our next streamed rehearsal is going to be Friday. That will be a board feed. So we'll be streaming from a machine, not the phone. Ale will put together a mix, and they're even, looking into like the compression of the Twitch algorithm so that their mix goes into Twitch's algorithm and then comes out sounding kind of crispy. So
Oh, interesting.
the audio should take like a huge leap forward next time.
Very
That's
cool.
the idea. That's the idea.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.
All right. Peace, people.
Peace.
Ah!